All right, man, here we go. You ready?
I am ready. Born ready, Pat.
Okay, we got a good show, of course.
Yeah.
Would never let you down, everybody. And
Yeah.
before we do that, the housekeeping. Go to verynotRandom.com. We appreciate you. You want to help support the show. Check out all the different cycles that we offer. Tons of on-ramp, barbell, bodyweight, dumbbell, running programs, barbell capacity programs, and then a whole bunch of get your firsts. First strict pull-up, push-up, handstand walk, toes to bar, ring muscle up. Check all that stuff out. And then, if you're a gym owner, go to btwb.com. Get your gym on the all-in-one. It's got gym management, billing, workout tracking. Basically, if you're not using the all-in-one, you're the tech equivalent of like riding a dinosaur and using a flip phone on dial-up. I mean, you just don't want to be there. You just don't want to be there. So, sorry, I didn't.
Can I say
Sure.
something, Pat? You know, every time you do one of these intros, I just kind of let the words wash over me. But I will say, sometimes I get a little jealous when you start talking about the Get Your First programs, because it's been a long time since I've gotten my first anything. And that feeling is just so awesome when I know it's hard in the interim, because it takes a lot to get like your first muscle up or to walk on your hands for the first time. Like there's no shortage of days that you're totally frustrated and just like ready to scrap the whole thing. But when you stick with it and you finally get that first thing, it's like, man, what a great feeling. And I haven't had that feeling in a long time, Pat.
That's a good point. I bet we could do a show about how to reignite that, because you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing quite like the first ring muscle up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dude,
that was
it's a great feeling.
Do you remember like back in the day, weren't they like listed
Yes.
somewhere?
That's
There was,
right.
like, a running list of-
On the old website, this was how small CrossFit was back in the day. For those of you that are newer to this whole thing, you could go to CrossFit.com and they had like a hall of, I can't remember what it was called. It was like a Champions Hall or Hall of Fame or something like that. But it was a little offshoot of the main site. And it was literally a list of names. And one of the categories was Muscle Up Club. And to get in the Muscle Up Club, you just had to send proof that like you could do a muscle up. And
That's
they would
so
put
cool.
your name on the list. Yeah, and the list was like 50 deep
Right.
for a while. It's like, which is
Now you-
insane now. I mean, you find 50 people in a big affiliate that can do muscle ups now.
Now you need one of those data storage sites in the middle of Arizona
Yeah,
or something just
exactly.
to house all the names. Are you
little
have you
perspective.
have you fitnessed today?
No, I have not, but I've got one on the books. It's a little top secret, so I can't talk about it. But
Okay.
I'll give you one that I did recently with a friend of mine, and I beat the brakes off him, so that was nice. He promptly beat the brakes off me the next workout, but at any rate, it made me think of you because it has knees to elbows featured in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we dropped in at an affiliate. I've been trying to do a drop-in every Friday, and this was what was on the board when we got there. It was 6 rounds of 3 minutes on, 1 minute off,
Okay.
45 double unders,
Yep.
20 knees to elbows.
For 6 times through.
Yep. And max deadlifts at 225 in the time remaining. Yeah, buddy.
Ooh, man.
My hamstrings were very sore for the next couple days, but I did do well on that workout.
I
And
bet your lats as well were sore.
yes, and I will say, it was knees to elbows as written, and then they had toes to bar written on the board as well. And I talked as much smack as I could to anybody who would listen that doing the toes to bar was actually scaling in this
100%.
context, because the knees to elbows are so much harder.
Dude,
if
they're
you do
so
them
much
correctly
harder.
and you actually
Yeah.
touch your knees to your elbows and you go through it. So anyway, it was a good time.
I got a spicy little number coming up soon with that, but it's not released yet. But anyway, I got to do actually the workout that we talked about a while ago when we interviewed the gentleman's name is eluding me. The soccer player, was it Nick Lima? I want to say was his name.
Yep.
He did the Linchpin test 5 with the 20 back squats, 2-mile run, 20 back squats. That's on my docket today.
What was his? He had like some savage time on that.
He did the run in 12 and change. And so I want to say he was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 minutes. It was something stupid.
man.
It was stupid, whatever
Yeah.
it was. But I don't know if I'm going to do the full barbell or do the dumbbell version today. For some odd reason, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning. I've got no clue why. I've been up since 3:30. It's just one of those days. So I don't expect any PRs.
Yeah.
But that actually was not even intended that way. It leads into our conversation today about a PR or not a PR on this thing that I have. That was literally not intended, but here we go. This was something I pulled from the old interwebs, if you will. And this is from a workout it's 4 rounds for time of a 500-meter row and then 12 bench press. Okay.
Great workout, by the way. That's fun.
Let's just say the weight's irrelevant. Like the prescribed weight's 155 for the men, I think 95 pounds for the women. But anyway, this individual, Charles N., made a post saying that he's got very little experience benching, so he's happy with how this went. Sadly, he was 3 seconds slower than the last time that this came around because it was a repeat. However, this time he had 10 pounds more on the bar. So 3 seconds slower, so not a PR, but 10 pounds more
Clearly
on the bar.
not.
Yeah, that's just, and there's so much here. I see some manifestation of something like this so many times. Did Helen, I was 30 seconds slower than I was last time, but it was my first time not using a band on the pull-ups. Or like something like, I see that stuff all the time, and it's logged as I was slower than last time, not a PR. And so I'm just gonna set that in front of you for a second.
Yeah, I had written down one line when we started batting around this topic a little bit. We hadn't discussed it much, but just kind of exploring the concept. The only thing I had written down was other dimensions for progress. And I think that's at its heart what it boils down to, is that for some reason, a lot of the time the clock becomes the only metric by which people measure themselves by.
You're
and
faster
it is weird.
Or you're slower.
That's right. And I mean, hey, that is true, right? There's no argument there that, you were 3 seconds slower. Sure, I get it. However, it's almost like if you take a look at that power formula and you want to get objective about it, there are other components to that. And one of them is force, so represented by weight that you're lifting or your body weight, right? The other is distance, which could be represented by straight distance on something like a run or a row, but also by the number of repetitions that you complete. And so, there are other factors here that are just as integral to this whole expression of power that have nothing to do with a couple of seconds here or there. And it is weird to me that it kind of stacks up in people's mind as clock. Clock only seems to be the jam there.
Because, in my mind, instead of this being like, pretty happy, 10 pounds more on the bar, 3 seconds slower, it's an okay day. I read this and I was like, man, this is a monstrous PR in my mind anyway. Like you were 3 seconds slower, 10 pounds more on the bar.
Yep.
There's 12 reps of bench per round for 4 rounds. So there's 48 bench press reps times 10 pounds. So you moved 480 more pounds than last time. And there was only
3 seconds
a 3
slower.
second difference. Like, are you kidding me? That is
not even close. Yeah.
That is an astronomical improvement, but negated by that the clock was 3 seconds slower. And so, for anyone out there that needs to hear this on whatever workout it happens to be, to piggyback on what you said, I beg of you that the clock is profoundly important in what we do. It's unbiased. It doesn't care about how you slept last night or any of that stuff. It's going to measure what it's supposed to measure, period, end of story. But it doesn't tell the entire picture. The last time you did the workout, was it in the middle of winter and you went out on the runs when it was 11 degrees? And today it's a wonderful fall day, 62 degrees and perfect. Those things matter. Was your run course exactly the same? Did you sleep exactly the same? All of these things factor in, and the clock is the clock. And so, as I've said so frequently, fitness is easy, people are hard. I will stand behind that. And I just encourage anybody, and this goes with your heavy lifts or whatever, the weight's the weight. The load on the deadlift is load on the deadlift. But take a step back, as corny and as much as I hate this saying, take in that holistic view of everything else that's going on, and then make an assessment of how your performance was on this particular training session.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of fun to do some thought experiments around this as well. So let's take a hypothetical, and I'll give you kind of the benign version of it that applies, I think, in this case to this 3 seconds slower, quote unquote, performance. And then I'll give you the extreme example, which hopefully makes it clear to everybody how big of a gap there actually is. But let's take the hypothetical of this bench press row workout. So 10 pounds heavier, like you said, you pointed out, it results in a ton, not a ton, literally, but like a lot more weight being lifted overall.
About a quarter ton almost.
There you go, quarter ton being lifted overall in, let's say, a rounding error of the time, right? Okay, let's put the hypothetical. The last time, I forget the gentleman's name, what was his name?
Charles.
Charles. The last time Charles did this workout, hypothetically at that fitness level, at that stage, what would the time have been for him to do it at that 10-pound increase? And I bet you the answer is a whole lot slower or couldn't have completed it at all.
100%, yes.
And so put in those terms, the fact that you're ballpark at all is a massive PR.
Yes, I like that.
So let's think about the other extreme, and this is a great one for the example you brought up earlier, like the Helen example. Oh, it was 30 seconds slower, but I did it without the band. Cool. The last time you did it without the band, what if you didn't use the band? For most people that are on the cusp, the answer is, well, I wouldn't have finished the workout.
Right, take me half the day.
Okay, well, there you go. Compare that hypothetical outcome to what you just did, and the gap is extreme. It's a massive PR. And so, sometimes when there's a couple of pounds here and there that you're adding on the bar, maybe you don't see it as much or it's less obvious. But if you think about a skilled movement where before you had to modify that movement because you weren't quite at the point that you could do all of the reps or all of the work in that prescribed version, but now you can, you're talking about a dead stop could not complete versus a competitive with your scaled version self. That's a huge PR. And seeing it any other way, just, I don't know, man, it kind of baffles me. So
you're like a different species. I mean,
That's right.
You're right, because you couldn't do pull-ups before in that Helen example. Now you can. Yeah. I mean, you've unlocked a whole new skill set. Before it was literally impossible. And there's some other things. I really like that perspective, by the way. And there's some other things where to let people know, like, that they're authorized to do things that might disrupt the clock. And what I mean by that is, like this workout that we just spoke about, I'm very familiar with it. It's one of our monthly Linchpin tests. It's called Broken Frog. It's a funny story behind that. But anyway, I know where I can like hum as an athlete to make this happen. Like the bench press loading is okay for me. The rep range is okay for me. And I know like my best performance is going to be, I do 2 minutes when I hop on the rower for the 500s. And that allows me to keep moving and I can get through the bench press really well. I know that's my comfort zone, my look cool on the leaderboard zone. If I wanted to make this workout spicier for me, if I told myself next time I do this, I have to row somewhere in the low 150s instead of, and just whatever happens, I'm here to tell you, I am undoubtedly going to be a couple minutes slower. For sure. The bench press is going to feel the heaviest 155 I've felt in a long period of time. I'm going to break it up way more than I did. And when I post that time, I'm going to have this little red block next to my btwb score that lets me know that I did not PR. As a matter of fact, I'm quite far from it. And that little thing's going to bum me out. But there's also really great training value in me not sandbagging the rower.
Say it louder. Yes. Agreed. Yeah, and I think that's a really great distinction too. We talk about this sometimes. It's funny because this has come up in the, my day job, quote unquote, with the competitive CrossFit world and the discussion around support gear, And it's strange to me that people can't wrap their head around the idea that there are certain things that you can do in training that may have a ton of utility that you would never do if you're trying to win a competition, or in this case, do your absolute best PR on this workout that you've done before. So to use your example, hey, as an athlete, you might know that it's a big weakness of yours to push the pace on the rower because that's just not something that you're very good at yet. And so your reaction to that could be, well, to maximize my best outcome on the clock, I'm going to take it easy on the rower because that gives me that warm and fuzzy feeling. But what you're sidestepping is the fact that you actually need more practice putting your pedal down on the rower, and you're avoiding that knowingly. And at the end of the day, I mean, maybe it's not going to be the difference maker that, projects you forward into this amazing rower. But at the same time, you have to recognize that you are knowingly sidestepping an opportunity to push your weaknesses out a little bit in lieu of the safety net of like, well, it's going to result in a faster time overall. You're strategizing yourself out of working on the thing that you actually should be working on. And I think that's kind of antithetical to the CrossFit ethos in some ways. So for what that's worth.
And it's funny because you get caught up in the clock. You do.
Yeah.
And like I said, the clock's valuable, and I'll throw myself under the bus for this workout because you're totally right with what you're saying right there. If between those, there's rowing and there's benching, and then there's smashing the two together. If you ask me as standalone items, am I better compared to my peers at bench press or rowing? I would say I'm better at bench press. And so what does that say? It tells me that I need to work on my rowing. But what do I specifically do in this workout? I play to my strengths.
Of course,
and I take the rower down so that I'll look cool on the leaderboard. Where truth be told, what would probably have the greatest impact to me is becoming a better of just sucking it up and that grind on the rower and pushing through it, and let the bench press be broken up. That's okay. Yeah. It's like not bad
let it fall apart.
Yeah. But I'm human, and it gets on there and I go, oh, I know what I need to do to make that clock say what I want it to say. And so it's an interesting deal. So you know what? You've motivated me. This one will raise. This one comes up every 6 months.
Sounds like there's going to be a commitment statement following this. I can't wait to hear it.
This one comes up every 6 months. So we just did this. So this will be coming up in 4 or 5 months. And when it does, I am going to take a chance on the rower. And so the good old VNR community can hold me accountable to this. That is my solemn promise to you.
Siri, set a reminder for 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully everybody forgets. Hopefully everybody forgets by then.
That's good.
But yeah, I think I don't think I have much more else. Just in closing, like I see this all the time, and I just want people to realize, kind of like what you said. Did you get your fastest time? Maybe not, but you could almost make quite a statement that there are many PRs or achievements or bests or progress that you can have, and not all of them are a best time on the clock.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave you with two thoughts here, Pat. One of them, it's that time of year, the Open's coming up, so that my brain is heavily kind of invested in that in a lot of ways.
I would assume it is.
And there is a reason that anybody who engages with the RX workout is ranked above anybody that does the scaled workout, is ranked above anybody that does the foundations. And it's because you can't compare them apples to apples. And so you have to give some respect to bumping up that skill challenge or that load challenge or whatever it may be. It's categorically a little bit different. And you should celebrate that, even if, to your point, the time isn't exactly reflective of a PR. So that's one thought I'll leave everybody with. And the second thought I'll leave, and this is kind of dovetailing on the idea of, hey, it's all, I guess, kind of natural for many of us, to your point, to try to play to our strengths in the workout so that the leaderboard comes out in our favor, or that the time we can write down, is the best foot forward. However, there is a ton of training utility to blowing up sometimes and coming out too hot and trying to hang on. And you know what? You're like, man, I crashed and burned. But at the end of the day, it was an amazing training session, and it projected me further than if I would have played it safe and just, gotten a better score on the leaderboard that at the end of the day, you're never going to come back to in many cases, and it doesn't really matter. So I'm not saying you have to just ride that line and throw yourself into that melting pot every single time. But once in a while, there's a ton of training value in like just letting her rip and see where the chips fall and being okay with the outcome no matter where it is on that leaderboard. So for what that's worth.
We're just working out, people. Take a chance.
That's right. Exactly. What's the worst that could happen?
Take a darn chance.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this helps people. Just celebrate yourselves just a little bit more. As always, we appreciate all of you watching, listening, all the support, all that good stuff. If you've got thoughts or comments on this particular topic that we discussed today, find the show on the btwb YouTube channel and post a comment. Let us know what you think. If you've got ideas for future content, you can post them there as well. Or you can go to the Very Not Random Instagram account. You can post a public comment there on any of the posts. We'll see that. And if you want to be anonymous, you can send a direct message to the Very Not Random IG account, and we will see those also. So for Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.